Hello, my name is Tamina Merza and I'm a volunteer on the Tiffinwali South Asian Food Heritage Project. It's Thursday the 17th of March 2022, 5:30 p.m. I'm here with Girish Chandigarh, who is a participant. Hello Girish, and thank you for agreeing to be a participant on this project.
Thank you, Tamina. I feel very reminisced. We have a very old friendship. Very proud to tell our viewers today that you and I went to the same primary school at the age of 3.5 or 4. So just very happy to be reconnected on something so valuable like this.
Oh, thank you so much. And yes, we do share, we grew up together on the same street for the last 10 years. So yeah, we were next door neighbours and we lived on Dersingham Avenue, and we went to the same primary school, Dersingham Primary School and Sheringham Primary School. So we both have a Newham background and shared history.
Correct. Yes, I was there for the first 10, 11 years of my life and then moved out of Newham. But yeah, they were the good old days, and still never forget. Your birthday was 2nd of May, mine was 5th of June, and I still think we still remember that 50 years on.
Yes, that's so correct, that's so true, we do. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so let me start by asking you, what's your favourite memories of around food when you're growing up?
See, I come from a family, especially on my mother's side, where everything seemed to be homemade. They took so much passion. My mother was born in Kenya, and I think at a very young age, she was taught to be an excellent homemaker, and part of this homemaker package is, to be able to cook. So even our ghee was a melted anchor butter. And I still remember, we were always, we weren't the richest family on the street, but we took pride in all our ingredients, and we always went into, the supermarkets and got the prime ingredients to make things at home. And I think I was very, very gifted that my mother always, made lovely homemade dishes for me. And we've enjoyed them till today.
So tell me more about those days.
Well, I spent 11 years of my life in Newham, and I must say they were good old days. No restaurants, no other outlets to go and eat, And I came, fortunately, from a family, especially my mother's side, who took a lot of passion and pride in home cooking. So whether it was the sweet desserts or it was the main savoury dishes, we always enjoyed homemade food. I would say we were not the richest family on the street, but we took pride in buying the best ingredients from the supermarket, making the most of them. And I still remember in those days, my mother would buy artichoke, and make something out of their buttersquash things, that you'd get on the English main side. And yes, I think she used her spices very, very carefully, and, came out with amazing recipes, I used to get a lot. Veganism and vegetarianism wasn't the issue of the day in those days. So I used to get a lot of my English friends asking me that if you're vegetarian, then what are you eating? And I said, gosh, we're really flooded with ideas, because ideally Gujarati people are mainly vegetarian. So Gujarati mothers are always thinking of ideas of how to do. And they're very good with their masalas and the ingredients, so they would think of the best recipe you would ever imagine in this world.
Oh, that's a lovely picture that you paint there. So how about other experience of food from neighbours, and what was the atmosphere like then?
Well, I think a prime example is your mother. She gave us the faluda jelly, the faluda, the kheer, that sevia kheer she used to make. I remember we couldn't match that excellence, because although natively your parents are from Gujarat, my parents are from Gujarat, but obviously Gujarat is vast, even bigger than the UK. So obviously you're from a different part. My nativity is more on the Saurashtra side, the Kathiawar side, where it's a lot of red chilies and also a lot of tomato purees, tomato chopped, etc. Whereas I think the culinary flavours of Surat, where is more your native, is very green, fresh vegetables. So you don't really see that many tomatoes, but the flavours are at their peak. So I loved what your mum did, and I think that sharing and bearing was really something that we'll live with maybe take her away to another life as well.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Okay, so in terms of, what was your favourite dish from that time?
Okay, we used to have a lot of something we call shak and rotli. Rotlis are the chapatis and shak is the sabzi in Gujarati families. I used to love my lentils a lot, but I think, being born and bred here, I think aloo, potato was always my favourite. So anything my mother used to make with potato. And don't forget, we were probably not, this is the 70s we're talking about, Tamina, so we were not that health conscious as we are today. So I still remember every Friday, one Friday my mother would be making kachoris, next Friday she would make samosas, then one Friday it would be batata vada, all deep fried, Great time, until we all started to realize what cholesterol is, and it suddenly stopped. But yes, I think those, from 1970 till about 1985, the first 15 to 17 years of my life, I could see a sudden upsurge and change in ingredients, modification, fusion. You used that earlier on, that word, and I think that is very, very important. Today's generation simply want fusion, I have above teenage kids, and one of them, my daughter, she loves some of these traditional things made out of potato, peanuts, sago, semolina. So these are very, very traditional items and ingredients that are used as part of Gujarati cooking, which I grew up with. And yeah, even today, I think, I have strong memories of the batata vadas and the kachoris and things, especially when you've got a mother who, is a food engineer in layman terms.
Oh, that's fantastic, Girish. Okay, so you mentioned fusion and how it's become more important. So do you remember anything fusion dishes from back in the days?
I do. That's a very good question. Now, I remember it was about 1981, and part of my father's business associates, he had secured a holiday in Monte Carlo for him and my mum. So they'd been out to Monte Carlo, and they explained, my father was fine with his non-veg dishes, but my mother was purely vegetarian. So they were in Monte Carlo, and the hotel had made my mother at an evening dinner some lovely pasta. So my mother had seen pasta in the supermarkets. So she came home and just made her own version of it, and it was a super hit there and then. Now, at the same time, we did not have Iceland in those days. It was the previous owners, B-Jam, you probably remember, frozen foods. My sister, who's 2 years older than me, she used to buy the ready-made pizzas. Now, coincidentally, my mother used to see her buying the pizzas, putting them in an oven, and eating them. And my mother is always very, very good at investigating what's in this, So she would look at the vegetables, she would look at the quality of the sauce, the cheese, etc. Incidentally and coincidentally, at her workplace, somebody she was talking with one of her English counterparts, and they said, "Oh, I make pizza at home." This is the English lady, her colleague. And she gave her the recipe. So my mother came home and she got the dough, got the yeast, started rolling them up. And again, it just went so well, especially when we just learned about the pasta, And then as time went by, she was very good with her mind and her soul and her hands and everything. She started to put her red chili in there and started to put her cumin seeds and things and making it very authentic. So, we ended up with Italian Indian pizzas type of thing. And that's really just continued over the years. So if she recently, last so many years, she's also invented the Indian version of the carbonara, white Indian sauce with all the other ingredients. Now she puts a lot of chilies in there. And a lot of the magic is in her mother's hand, so I could not replicate that recipe. But fusion, coming back to your question, yes, has really, really taken over in a very, very pleasant way.
Oh, that's fantastic, because you were very early adopters of fusion then.
Gradually, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Okay. So in terms of your mother, I think you said you talked about get-togethers and you have fond memories of family getting together. What was special about the food when you did get together?
But first of all, in those days, it was not normal that if you had 12 people over, you wouldn't take them to a restaurant. Today, that's the shortcut way of doing things, Okay, doesn't matter what it costs, we'll go into a restaurant. Everything was done at home. So I'm talking about everything from sort of 70s up till 90 or 88, maybe. And what used to happen is no matter how many people used to come, my mother used to be busy. She'd get up by 7 o'clock and she'd make everything fresh. So, and especially when guests came, there were always things that, she would make that we wouldn't have on a normal day. There'd be some sweetmeats, desserts there. There'd be lovely, we have something called undiyu in Gujarati, which is a combination of banana, potato, green beans, everything made into a lovely curry. And that goes very, very well with dal, rice. It goes well with some pickle. So undiyu is probably the pride of Gujarat, I would say. So to be made, on a day that we have something like 8 visitors coming was quite common. As the years went on, I think, people were a little bit fed up with shak and rotli. That's the sabzi and the chapatis. They wanted, more, a bit of Mexican. They wanted Italian. What my mother does more recently, she makes a lovely cannelloni. Again, it was ideally an English not an English, but an Italian recipe. She found that a little bit bland. It's nice. I like the English recipe, but then she puts her mirch masala in there, and that's just perfect for any Indian dinner. So she does that. She does the carbonara now, she is very, very good at making for desserts trifles, with her own. She really has a great passion for a fruit salad she makes, which is a combination of milk, milkshake powder, all fresh vegetables like papaya, cherries, fresh bananas. She also puts a can of pre-made fruit cocktail in there, so you get a mixture of fresh fruit and all that, and that's all mixed with a milkshake, the Nesquik banana milkshake that enhances the flavour. She leaves that overnight, and the next day you feel like you're in heaven. You just have scoops and scoops full.
Oh my gosh, you're making me hungry. My mouth is watering just imagining it.
Me too.
That sounds amazing, and I need to be coming around your house more often,
Yes,
I think, for dinner.
Please do.
Well, that's fantastic, thank you. What's your best memory from your childhood around food or an occasion or a person?
Well, I think best occasion really is the mixture of homemade and restaurant as well. See, we've reached a stage now that you can't eat 7 days. You can't eat 7 days homemade food. You'd need 1 day Nando's or whatever. And then I think at the moment, once, maybe twice a week, we go to a nice restaurant, an Indian restaurant or Mexican restaurant. It could be a chain Mexican restaurant, an Italian restaurant, but we must eat out. So I think when that transition was happening, late 80s, when we started to go into restaurants, was good. I could get the best of both worlds. And that exists till today. Obviously, when a typical example is when we've gone into Europe for 4 or 5 days, and when we come back, I really need my sabzi and khichdi, with a lot of chili in there. Because what happens in Europe, especially, is you're out on the streets of Amsterdam or wherever, and you're eating falafel and chips every single day, which is fine. But on your 4th, 5th day, you do miss, what you're used to, which is a good old curry.
So there's the further appreciation for your home food and home cooking.
Always.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned your mum learnt to cook and still does the cooking. Has she passed on her skills to yourself or her next generation grandchildren?
That's a very, very good question. I think what happens when you've got a super duper mother cook, she doesn't have the patience to teach her own daughter or her granddaughter. Because daughters and granddaughters or even daughter-in-laws take too long. What about this? What about? She hasn't got the patience, and maybe she's got that conscience that it won't taste the same. Will everybody in the family miss my cooking? So she ends up doing it. So the daughter never learns. You see, the daughter or the granddaughter has to revert to YouTube eventually. But that's the best way to do it, because I have a living example of my sister who moved out to the US 20 years ago. and you'd expect she'd be a magnificent cook, but no, my mother never ever gave her the chance. But when she went out there and she lived with her husband, she didn't have any kids at the time, she realised that we can't go to a restaurant every single day, so she learned. So she learned through recipe books, and then she would be on the phone to my mother, what would I do about this? And that's really, you know, necessity is obviously the mother of invention. So that's the best way for a daughter or a granddaughter to learn.
Wow.
And I'm getting the same story again. You know, I'd get my daughter calling out from university and say, oh, you know, grandmother, how do you do this and that? She'll try it, she'll do it. Yeah, I don't think there's ever a chance where my granddaughter and my mother are both standing side by side and trying it all out.
Oh wow! So it's still taught by your mother, but long distance and
long distance, and I think the aspiration and the inspiration is definitely the grandmother.
Lovely, that's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you want to tell us about your experiences growing up or around food?
I think, in all fairness, I think, you know, as we grow older, you know, I would say, you're never old, you know, you're never young, put it that way. But as health and dietary needs change, we become very conscious, you see. So like I said, in the 70s, every Friday or Saturday, there was kachori, samosa. That has all decreased now. And now my kids are old enough, we don't really have, at least when they were tiny tots, we used to have chips every week. That all finishes, you know. So something deep fried, I'd be lucky if I have it once or twice a month. And if we do make it any more than twice a month, I think it will just be left. You know, we're so used to having very sort of, you know, high in fibre and very dietary salads and things, nutrition where, you know, the protein is, etc. But yeah, once you've eaten good quality home food, it will always be close to your heart.
Very true, very true. Do you think in our drive to be more health conscious that it's taken you away from our heritage food?
No, not really. What happens in life is you go through a transition, you know, it's all in the mind. You know, the mind just, when it's, you know, sucking oil, it just seems to continue. But then when you get into the balance, it's like myself, you know, I'm diabetic, but I'd always have chocolates in the fridge because I mustn't deprive myself. Now, if I deprive myself of any oily food or even chocolates, I'm going to collapse. I'm not going to be able to focus. So what I do is I keep chocolates in there and I have them in smaller quantity. And that's good for me because if I don't, I'm going to go low in sugar. The same thing happens with the mind, the soul, the metabolism. You know, you need a potato vada in your life at least, you know, once in 3 weeks. Yeah. And then don't forget, as you age, you do not consume the same amount that you did when you were 20. So that reduces automatically. Okay, so it's got to be a mix. And then also, if you've got diabetes or anything like that, you know, the doctors, what they do today is they force you to go to the gym. They tell you very politely, I go to the gym 4 times a week simply because I'm diabetic, because exercise is a better tool than any medicine you can think of. So we combine all these things, and I don't think we deprive ourselves from anything. Take the good example of Puran Puri, you will probably know, is a very, very good Gujarati dish, which is little dumplings, very beautiful little dumplings, drenched in ghee. Now, I don't think I have Puran Puri more than maximum once in 18 months. Or take jalebis. I normally wouldn't go into a sweet shop and buy jalebis, but on Hindu New Year's Day, if you go to any of the Swaminarayan temples, they've got fresh jalebi in front of you. Are you going to miss out on that opportunity? Are you really going to do that? Is your diabetes really going to increase on that one day? No. So the idea is we have not abandoned these cuisines. We've just balanced them, really, really accurately positioned them. And you know, when you've had too much sugar, if I've had too much sugar today, I'll be fine. For the next 7 days, I won't even touch a, you know, diet Coke, let alone normal Coke. That balance, as long as that balance is in your mind, you will live healthy. And then don't forget, if you're somebody like me that has a blood test every 6 months, they will show on the results. And if I've really hit the roof, then that means I'm consistently being bad. But touch wood, that's not happened with me.
Okay, so everything in moderation.
Yeah.
So generally what you're saying is, do you think heritage food was unhealthy?
I don't ever think so, no. But I think what happened is we didn't have the the knowledge in those days. We didn't have the education in the 70s that, we didn't know what the alternative was. So we probably consumed more and made it unhealthy. Like I said, potato vadas every Friday, not a good idea, you see. We've now learnt, take the example of Gujarati khichdi. I'm sure you've had Gujarati khichdi. Okay, it tastes very bland and normal, but it's an excellent source of protein. And what happens with khichdi is if you just have khichdi and some potato sabzi, just and a bit of yogurt, you will not be hungry till 1 or 2 o'clock the next day. That protein lasts in your body. So there's so many evenings I think, what am I going to eat? And I end up having khichdi simply because of the protein, the vitality in khichdi. We didn't know that before. Now we do. Okay. And to enhance that, I'm not purely vegetarian, so I like my fish. I've always got fish in the freezer. Some sea bass or something. Put a bit of lemon on there. Put a bit of olive oil, and here you go with some vegetables. So I like to, here and there, take in a bit of English cuisine as well.
Like to mix it up, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so leading on from that, do you think English food has impacted on your cuisine, and the other way around? What has been the impact of our heritage culture on British cuisine?
Definitely both ways, Tamina, without even a doubt. I love my roast potatoes. I love my Yorkshire pudding. I also, like I said, I love my fish, and I don't make my fish in any Indian style. I like it just with a bit of anchor butter, a bit of thyme on there, a bit of parsley on there, let it roast in the oven. So yes, I think I like that. I also love to, if you can call something like Nando's British, I guess it's Portuguese, but it doesn't matter, the emblem of non-spicy food, definitely. Especially for, new generations here, whether it's British-born person like myself or the next generation like my children, they would love a cottage pie, or they would love to go into Toby's for a roast dinner. That, I think it segregates the monotony to me of food. So it's lovely to go into a Toby's and have an evening meal there, have all your English bits and pieces. Definitely. The other way around, 100%. I've got my English friends who love their bit of Chinese, they just love their Indian. They're probably bigger. I've got English friends that are bigger fans of Indian food than my own son, my son is, to be honest with you. Definitely works both ways. Some regions are not so happy. I have found that the Eastern European people are not that open to Indian food. They just don't like the spices. Maybe Christopher Columbus needed to go into Eastern Europe here, the Poland and places like that, to introduce it to them. It's what happens with a lot of the English, I think, having been part of the Raj, the English, they're probably, from centuries to centuries coming down in more their own generations, having had spice for many years, that has just filtered down from generation to generation. So definitely, of course, there's inter-exchange.
No, and you make a good point. It's about different cultures and how many years they've had to get used to it. So potentially the newer immigrants, who are, whatever culture they are, aren't used to it. But okay, thank you. That's very enlightening, and that's been brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much, Girish. You brought back so many memories, and thank you for sharing your experiences.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Tamina.